Hey, what's good, people? This is episode 170. This is the Option Podcast. That guy over there looks like Edward Miskie. maybe,
Oh my
maybe
God, it
not.
is.
We're going to find out. The episode starts right now. How you doing, Eddie? Edward?
I'm good. I'm good. Oh my God, Eddie, my grandma calls me that.
No. What do you prefer?
Edward. Yeah.
Yeah, Edward. Yeah, that's your freaking name. Good. Ain't nobody calling me Jay. But
All right.
episode 170, people. This is the Option Podcast along with Edward Miskie. I'm Jason DeBias. Got to give the people what they want. Got to give the people what they want. You've quite the journey, dude, that you put all into this book. That man, I got back from Vegas, went to Barnes and Noble to try to buy it, and they're like, well, you have to like pre-order and pay for it first. And I'm just like, you're a bookstore.
No.
Dude, you're a bookstore. You're a bookstore.
Yeah.
You know, this is why
Like half the
Amazon
book.
wins. And yeah, this is why Amazon wins, and you guys are losers. Absolute losers. So
I know. I do love Barnes and Noble though. It was one of the places like when I first moved to New York that I'd like sit in with my laptop and like a little coffee and just like people watch and be like, oh, I'm a New Yorker now.
yeah. So we're
So,
definitely
like-
gonna get into the book.
Yeah.
But chronology wise, we're just gonna be in charge of driving each other off the cliff and coming back on.
Sounds good.
When did you start performing?
Oh God. I mean, I think the first time I was on a stage, I might have been 4. It was definitely at a church, and it was definitely at my parents' request. Both of them are musicians. My mom plays piano, my dad plays guitar, and so they were kind of like in charge of the church music stuff. And like, I got dragged on stage to sing, and that was kind of it. Just having the little church people clap at me. It was like, oh, okay. Positive reinforcement.
What kind of church was it? Was it a sing hymnals church, or was it people speaking in tongues, doing
No, thankfully it
cartwheels
wasn't
up
any
and
of that.
down the aisle?
Yeah, no, it was a hymnal. It was a very white Catholic hymnal, middle of Pennsylvania kind of church.
That's how I grew up.
Yeah, same. It was Catholic school all the way for the most part, and yeah, it was quite a minefield to kind of navigate with that and doing theater. And growing up gay in the middle of Pennsylvania isn't exactly like something you want to do or aspire to, which is why I moved to New York.
Yeah, and drawing the timeline too, like the chronology, where Pennsylvania was kind of more at the tail end of it. New York got ahead of the game a little bit.
Bit, yeah.
Totally. But I'm with you with the church. I grew up Catholic, and then 13 years old, from Catholic to Assemblies of God. And you can imagine like the
man.
shock.
Right, you're like, what are you doing? Stop talking. It's supposed to be quiet.
It calls, dude. That's the kind of thing you call your social services on your parents for. And shock the kid from amen to if you don't know if you're going to heaven or hell, you going to hell.
Right, someone's falling on the floor or something.
Oh man! So your first musical, I read that your first musical that you saw was 42nd Street. And
yes,
special significance to me because it was my second one. My first one,
really?
My first one was The Wiz.
Okay, cool.
And I'm from a black family. My mom's black, my father's white, but I grew up Flatbush. If you're from New York, Flatbush is predominantly West Indian and black. And they wanted me to see The Wiz and then just go away from musical theater. And I'm like, nah, the hell with that. I want to see something else.
No, that's such a good show.
42nd Street. Yeah, man.
When did you see it? Was that like it was the revival, like 2000?
I'm giving away my age. I saw it in 1982.
Oh.
Yeah.
You are giving away your age. But you got to see the Jerry Orbach production.
I should. But man, just
what
listen to her. Come and meet. That little bass, those dancing feet.
Oh, I know.
God.
I love it. It's so good. I mean, it was so like my aunt works on Broadway. She's back now. She's doing Sweeney Todd, but like that was the first Broadway show that she worked at. And the whole family came up to see it. Like, we were friends with the guy who was the lead guy, and we got to go backstage and meet Christine Ebersole. And it was such a magic day, and it was one of the first times, if not the first time, I kind of realized like, oh, like you can make money doing this. This is like a thing you can do for a job. And then from that on, like the well was poisoned from then on out. Like I didn't want to do anything else. And it was just like, why am I not being paid for this? You know, like an indignant 13-year-old.
Dude, you're lighting up just talking about it right now. You should
Well,
see you should see your face right now.
It's
You're
my
lighting
ring
up
light.
just talking about it. That's awesome.
It's the ring light, but
Damn.
yeah, but it was a magical day. I mean, I do remember we were in the orchestra, but we were like towards the back, and like the mezzanine was over us, and I just remember the curtain coming up as in 42nd Street as they do. The curtain comes up to their knees, and they start doing like the big tap opening number thing. And it just was like electrifying. Like I still remember how that felt with the sound and just like looking at it, and I probably was trying not to cry. But it was just such a cool moment. And then years later I got to do the show and be Julian, and I got to like stand in the wings and watch the curtain go up and like see the thing. It was such a good full circle moment. Like, oh God, it was so good.
I gotta tell you, I'm a guy who always proclaims that I hate musicals and I love straight plays, but
That's a
I
lie.
think it's the hugest lie in the United States of America, if not the world. I sing karaoke twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, and every song involves a musical.
Yeah.
You know, Starlight Express. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, not Starlight
Pumping iron.
Express.
When I'm working out. You remember that song? Hear me knocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rocky Horror Show. You know, it was very big when I was growing up. I was at the 8th Street Playhouse back then, which doesn't
Oh
exist
yeah,
anymore.
downtown. It's gone.
9 years old. I didn't even know what a sweet transvestite was. I'm 9 years old. It's a midnight show, and my aunt, who's supposed to be babysitting my sister and I, we commute from Brooklyn to the Village, and it's just a good time. People throwing rice. You know how it is. People throwing rice and whatever. If it's raining in the theater. You know, you go in and it's like, why are people having raincoats? It's humid as out here. Why people got raincoats on? But you find out that first night. So
Right.
and I got to
yeah.
play Rocky when I got out of the military. I was a stand-in for Rocky.
Oh, hilarious.
I came out of the military just absolutely cut. My hair was blondish back then. It's like a Jufro now. See that? But like a New York Jufro. But
Yeah.
so getting back to theater, I had a question, but I want us to share maybe a story, and maybe it's not a story. I'm gonna go and you're gonna go, or you go and I go. Was there a particular moment, perhaps a play, or perhaps something someone said to you, that you said to yourself, I'm doing this for a living? Now, you grew up and you loved it, and then you lit up. But then some people are like, oh, this is fun, but did you grow up in a family where people were like, okay, this is fun, but you got to get a real job when you grow up? Or was the defining moment in your early childhood that you're like, this is what I'm going to do? Boom. The floor is yours,
Yeah.
my man.
I mean, it was a mixed bag, right? So like, my grandparents like loved to come see the shows, but then were very like, get a real job someday. Like, oh, make sure you go to college and get a degree in something reliable, and then I was like,
God.
no, and I didn't go to college.
God,
at all,
I wish
so,
I listened.
Seriously. But yeah, so I didn't end up going to college at all, but my parents were always supportive because again, they're like music people. And but then like, I don't know, there was so much push pull, because like for the most part my friends were super supportive. I had music teachers that were really supportive. I had voice teachers that were really supportive. My grandparents were like, get a job. My parents of course wanted to be supportive, and they were, but they were also like worried for me. They were like, get some skills that you can, marketable skills. And then high school ended and it was really bad. I did not have a good time in high school at all, and I just was like angry and wanted to leave and get the f- out of there. And I did. I graduated May 27th, and my lease for my apartment started June 1st, and I was like, I am out of here. I couldn't do it. But I mean, it's really like seeing 42nd Street and realizing that people got paid to do it was kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to do that. And there really was no other moment. It was literally just seeing it and seeing that it was a real thing that I could do. And that was it. Like
and you knew you fit in.
Yeah. I mean, there was no question about it. Like for me, it was just like, this is what I'm doing, the end.
Mm-hmm. When you grow up how I grew up, there's nothing but questions about it. Like I never knew my real father. My stepfather was an iron worker. You know what I'm saying? He started work at 14. In fact, my first job was working for him. He had a little part-time business. And my parents at the kitchen table, they're like, man, you better go get a civil service job. So what happened was after the military, I got a job at a doctor's office, Dr. Rosenfeld, which is 1 block from Marymount, Manhattan. It's on 72nd and Lex, where Marymount was like 71st and like 3rd and 2nd. And he was the doctor of the stars. So he had like actors, directors, this, and I mean, I can name them off. Lauren Bacall, Sophia Loren, Walter Matthau, Lemon, and presidents and just all kinds of people. So what happened was one day Lauren Bacall, who doesn't sit in the waiting room, she sits back there and keeps asking me for drugs, right? Do you have any drugs? Do you have any Lipitor? Right? Do you have any Nexium? Do you have any, not Viagra, but I actually finally opened my mouth and I was like, everyone in this office says I should be an actor because I was just doing impersonations and I was always in the moment and I was just dead on balls with like, with timing and everything without even like thinking. And her answer in the form of a question was she looked at me in the most condescending way and she goes, what else are you doing? you know? And I was like, man, I said, you know what I said? I said, this chick. And then when I went home, I looked in the mirror and I said, this chick, And
Well, I mean, I
I
can
got
understand the
myself back in
mentality though.
school academically. My boss got me in academically, and I interviewed with Marymount. They had like 10,000 interviews, and they invite 600 to audition.
Mhm.
And I got invited to audition, and they only take 100 for the program and only 40 for the BFA. So at the time they were ranked number 2 in the country. Juilliard was 1 and 2. There was like a 10-year period. They were,
Yeah.
you draw the picture in New York. Central Park's in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Juilliard's west, Marymount's east. New York's their campus.
Right.
Um,
That's the rivalry there.
yeah, and I got in, and that's when I started finishing. But I'm kind of with you. When someone asked me what my biggest obstacle was for theater, I told them theater school. you
That's
know?
why I didn't go.
Yeah, good
No,
for you. Tell
and
me, talk to me.
it there's like, I don't know, the theater business as a whole is its own obstacle. Like it just has such a hard time getting out of its own way. And I think we're finally seeing some cracks in that now, which is good. I mean, there's a I don't know if it's still running, but there was a play on Broadway that finally was like live streaming. Like thank God. Like why are we alienating, like the thing is, I could go on about this forever. Um Shows close faster than they ever have now because ticket prices are so high and it costs so much to put shows on Broadway.
Yeah.
And union rates, of course, like we want everyone to be paid fairly, but they're so high, and like it really is very limiting on how you can put a show up successfully. And the Metropolitan Opera just did this with the Hours Opera. A friend of mine was in that, and they put the Hours Opera in movie theaters for a weekend, or I think it was 2 weekends in a row. And their first weekend, they made almost $1 million. And it's like, why is Broadway not doing something like that? It doesn't necessarily have to be movie theater, but like if you're live streaming or you have a pro shot or something that you can, like, even if you just set a camera up in the back and shoot the show and put it behind a paywall and charge X amount of dollars to see it, like that's money you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And the model of theater as a business is so broken and so hard because it hasn't kept up to date with itself. And by doing that, I mean, like, unless my argument for this is, unless the theater doors are open, you're not really making money. You're making ticket sales, but like beyond that, like what, you maybe get some money from merch, and that's really kind of it, right? So why would you not have the ability to have people pay and watch it online from home? There's so many productions across this country and in other countries that I would have paid a premium to watch in my living room. There was a production of Little Shop that was up in London a couple years ago, and I was like, do I fly to London for a day to see this? And it was just cost prohibitive. But if I could have paid $50 to sit at home and watch it, I absolutely would have done it. And I know that I am
Hundreds of
not
people too. Yeah.
right. I'm not a singularity here. Like if you could watch that production across the globe, think of how much money those producers would have made and
Mhm.
made up for by investing in that show. And I really hope that I think the show's called From Riverside to Crazy or something like that. And I really hope that by doing this, they completely show like metrics and numbers and money and just break that entire assumption. And somehow we're able to do that with shows moving forward, that like some kid in Indiana who loves musical theater and feels completely alone in that, like, is able to pay $15-20 to watch a show at night and see a piece of theater and a piece of Broadway that is hundreds of miles away, that they never would have been able to see until maybe they were in their 30s. And
Yeah.
how would that impact that kid? You know, like it's just the accessibility and the technology that we have now. Like, use it for the benefit of the greater whole piece, you know, like cultivating a new theater audience and making people money. You can do both.
Can you appreciate how many bottom lines you said there? Like bottom lines, no, bottom line, the performers make more money, right? Bottom line,
Yeah.
people don't have to travel to on the other side of the world to do this. People, bottom line, there is this chronological sense of satisfaction that, you know, you got to get this guy or he's not, or when the show's done, that's done forever. You know, like I watched a video version of The Taming of the Shrew, of the play. Someone videotaped the play.
Yeah.
If I didn't see that I would have hated Shakespeare. I did not like Shakespeare. I was in fear of Shakespeare. And then I just saw this, like when he was trying to court her, and it was a San Francisco production. It was absolutely fantastic. And I'm like, I hope it's on YouTube somewhere, because my theater history professor, Gordon Farrell, had the VHS tape. You know what I'm saying? First of all, we had to find one, you know, because even in 2006, VHS was like disappearing.
That was not a thing anymore.
So we had to find one, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, and to that point too, I mean, like, there's a lot of arguments saying that if you watch it online or you see a bootleg of it, that, you know, oh, well, then they've seen it and they're not going to come see it in person or when it tours or whatever. And that's absolutely not true. Like, if that kid in Indiana saw a production of, like, you know, I don't know, like Hamilton online, which you can do,
right?
Like, do you think that they're not going to go see the tour when it comes through? Like, no. How exciting is that? The people that you saw on the TV are here in town. Like, think of any celebrity, any rock star. Like, you buy the album, you listen to it. That doesn't mean that you're not going to go see them live when they come through town. You know, like, let's what's the logic? I don't understand.
Let's have a little fun. Let's have a little fun here. Is there a play that you heard was really, really good that you wish you were there to see?
Oh, I didn't get to see Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Who was in it?
The last time that they did it, I don't remember who was in it.
Doesn't matter. It's a great play. Who cares?
I know it doesn't matter, but it was this specific production that was up and running before quarantine and shutdown.
Yeah.
Because, like, everyone who had seen it was like, "Oh my God, it was so good," and I never got a chance to see it. And I would have loved to see it.
What I would have wish I saw, was The Seagull. It was in England, and it was up for the London Evening Standard Award. It's like 2002, and Dominic West. I don't know if you ever saw The Wire. The guy that played Officer McNulty. He's actually a Brit putting on the perfect Baltimore accent. And the sad thing was, I was in England. You know, I was at a reggae concert, Buju Banton, they said Dominic West was awesome, but I did get to see the one in Shakespeare in the Park, where Kevin Kline was Constantine, Arkadina was Meryl Streep, and Christopher Walken played Soren. So just a great, that was my second Shakespeare in the Park. What was your first one? I know you've seen some.
In Shakespeare in the Park?
Yeah.
It's funny you should ask. I didn't see one until 2012.
Right.
And it was, you know, it ties into my cancer story too. I had never seen anything in Shakespeare in the Park. I was finally living close enough. I had moved to the Upper West Side at that point. And
wow, you fall, you're there.
Right. Like, one of my friends messaged me and was like, "Hey, I have an extra ticket to see Into the Woods tonight. Do you want to come?" And I was like, yes. And so I got to see the Amy Adams Into the Woods with Jesse Miller, and just, it was just a beautiful production. And I just sat there and cried the whole time, you know.
Of course.
I was like going through chemo, like shit was bad. I hadn't done my stem cell transplant yet, and Into the Woods is one of my favorites. So, you know, and just having the backdrop of Central Park behind them doing that show, and that set design and that cast, it just, everything about it was perfect.
Yeah.
And that was my first one, and it's really my only one. The only other thing I've seen there, I think, is Twelfth Night with Danielle Brooks. I think that was Twelfth Night. Am I making that up?
No, that was Daniel Brooks.
Yeah, it was like 2 seasons ago.
Yep.
Well, no. Oh my God, I guess it was longer than that. 4 years ago.
No, it was like, no, I think I might have still been in New York for that one, but I think it might have been 2016, but maybe 2018. I'm not sure.
I don't really know, but whatever.
We get the point.
2018 makes more sense. So yeah, that's 2018 makes more sense. So yes, those are the only 2 I've seen, unfortunately. And there was one. There was one a couple years later.
But mine wasn't even Shakespeare. It was Chekhov, right? Mine was Chekhov. And then the second one I saw was Mother Courage, which was Brett. But 1991, Denzel Washington, Richard II.
Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, and the good thing about this too, and I don't think a lot of people know this or practice keeping up with it, but like Lincoln Center, for a lot of stuff like that, they film it for archive. And you can go to the Lincoln Center Performing Arts Library and watch it. So like the Jerry Orbach 42nd Street that you've seen, I've also seen it. I saw it on a little TV with like grainy film, but like I got to see it because they filmed it and archived it.
Question about now I got to be in interview mode because musical theater is more your wheelhouse, where I was more of a straight play guy. How much there's an old saying, Sanford Meisner said, an ounce of behavior is worth a pound of words. How much do you go where you want to give the audience excitement, but at the same time not go too far where you're like, all right, they get it? Do you understand my question?
I don't know.
All right, here's an example.
Can you phrase the question?
Here's an example. Our Falstaff, right? Henry IV, right? You can go, the rascal hath removed my horse and tied him, I know not where, right? Or you can go, if I move but 4 foot by the squire further afoot, I shall break mine wind.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying like overdoing it
right.
versus underdoing it.
Yeah. They say an ounce of behavior is worth a pound of words. So in terms of musical theater, I'd like you to educate me and my audience, because most of my audience are freaking athletes. This is just an absolute, dude, it's an absolute pleasure.
I mean, for the record, I played football and I played basketball, and my team was state champs, and I also sang the national anthem at those games. And hindsight, I was badass for doing that.
Don't say you did it at Baruch College.
No, it wasn't in New York. It was in Pennsylvania. But like football, I was terrible at. I hated it. But basketball, I actually was quite good at. I'm 6'4", so like that was on my side. I mean, I love volleyball. I wish I would have played volleyball. I wasn't allowed to. We didn't have a boys team. But basketball was, oh God, I loved it. I hated my teammates, but I loved playing.
The sport in itself is pure, and if you're lucky enough to have good teammates, you can enjoy that. Volleyball is very much the same because it's sixes, unless you're playing doubles on the beach. I'm a former pro indoor guy that moved here, and now I'm balancing my time coaching the beach and doing color commentary and for adults and juniors for indoor. So. Yeah, but let's talk about it. Ounce of behavior, pound of words.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to tie this into basketball too, because
please.
I think for musical theater, basketball is a lot like musical theater, right? Like you got to keep going. You got to keep going, and you go up and down the stage or the court or whatever until you like hit the basket and get the scene done, right? But for musicals, I mean, and I think this is true with plays too, like. Ounce of behavior, like whatever, like if you're telling the truth and you're being truthful and you're telling what is supposed to be told in your way, and it makes sense to the story and the text and the scenario, then I kind of think it doesn't matter, and who cares, because the truth is always going to resonate with people, and that's all actors really are, right? Like we put on a show, yes, but we're just telling you the truth.
Right.
And sometimes you don't want to hear the truth, and sometimes the truth is hard, and sometimes the truth is entertaining, and sometimes the truth is funny. But I think as long as you're just telling the truth, it kind of doesn't matter if you're going over the top or what's perceived to be not far enough. That's what the director's for. The director is there to kind of like take what you want to bring to it and polish it down to what his or her or their vision of it is. So like all the Shakespeare hand motions of like basically giving you over dramatized hand motions versus
you don't see that small. Yeah, you don't really see that with the older actors. You see it with some of the younger guys just trying to come out and just trying to whatever. But
yeah, I mean,
some of the more seasoned guys, you don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if I understand that or have seen enough of it really to speak on it, but I mean, I think the universal truth here is the truth. Like if you're telling it, then it doesn't matter what you're doing as
Yep.
long as it makes sense.
Yeah, so educating my audience who think a lot of people are putting on a role and it's completely fabricated. I'll speak for both of us on this. Acting is real human behavior in imaginary circumstances. So it
Yeah.
is. So echoing your sentiment, it is real. It is grounded. It does come from an honest place. And as it a question of whether it's interesting or not is really up to the actor and the audience that decides they are. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, and one of my favorite things to do with a script, and every time I get a script, I'm kind of like, I'll read it a couple times and with my focus on my character, obviously, but then also the characters around them
mhm.
and kind of figure out what's wrong with them. Like I used to say, like, what makes this person crazy? But it really is just kind of like, what's wrong with you? Like, what is your thing? Like for example, if this particular character, like if there's a context clue that maybe alludes to the fact that, they were beat up as a kid, like that you carry that with you. Like whether you know it or not, you carry it with you. So like let's add that into the mix. Like I was picked on as a kid. I've been made fun of for my weight at times in my life. And excuse me, and I carry that with me. And I know that when I'm walking around town and I pass a window or a glass surface, I look in and like immediately I'm like, okay, like I'm not as skinny as I was when I was 22. Like obviously, duh, we all do that. But I carry that thought process with me. And it's like, oh, do I look skinny today? Like, oh, how do I look okay? Do I look okay? And like that affects the way that I maneuver throughout the day. So when I get a script, I look for that. What are they carrying with them? Like, what is the thing that they carry with them all day, every day, all the time?
Yeah.
And some are easier to do than others, but I mean, in the conversation of 42nd Street, like Julian was easy. He was scared. He
Yeah, like
was
all the time.
fucking scared all the time. And everything he did was based off of fear that he wouldn't be the success that he always thought he was going to be and didn't get a chance to be because of the crash.
Dude.
And
Yeah. Sorry,
like,
finish your thought.
no, it's okay. You're fine. But it's just stuff like that where you like have to find it in the script and then you're like, oh, okay. Like, so there were moments like, I don't know if I consciously did this at first or didn't, but when I was doing the show, like it was very much like having those moments where he's not talking a mile a minute, which is a very Julian thing, and bossing people around, where he would have these moments where it was just like, oh, like, okay, what's the next step? Like, I don't know what the next step is. And then it would come to him because like the next step is the most important step because it's one step closer to him being successful again and him living up to whatever he needed to live up to. And that didn't come across with like, oh my God, I have to like go and sell the tickets and make the show. And, like, because that's not who he is.
You didn't mean to do that. It was funny. It's an involuntary reflex, but go ahead.
Right. He has a tick. But yeah, I mean, it's not that. And like, I hate it when actors are like, oh, I'm just going to decide that this person has like a left eye twitch. Like that's bullshit. That's because you're like jerking yourself off and trying to be like, I'm an actor.
Yeah.
But it's not the truth. And
So
like,
bad.
if you can, if it's in the script and you can find it and you can justify it, go for it.
Yeah.
But
Hey, going back to what you said before, I just want to say this before we leave that subtopic. Bullies are bull, man. Dude, bullies are bullshit, dude. I actually left school for a year. No one knew. My parents, no one knew. I did not go to school for a year because I was getting bullied, and then it didn't happen because I was constantly getting bullied. It happened because I snapped. And I'm not 6'1", but I'm a big guy. I used to be 265. I dropped 60 pounds. I took on I'll tell you that story later, but I snapped. And before I knew it, I was like choking the life out of someone. And like the next day, I heard like 15 Russian guys were looking for me because I went to school, John Dewey in Brooklyn. And it's one stop from kind of like Coney Island and the Brighton Beach kids. The Russian Jews go there.
Oh, yeah.
So I found out like 15 Russian dudes were looking for me, and I'm just like, okay, I ain't going back to school.
Out of here.
And I would spend the entire day at the arcade, And in the middle of school, I would stick my head in school, you know, go to power volleyball class and acting for the camera, and then disappear again because John Dewey was an independent study school, meaning that half the classes didn't have teachers. So there were kids roaming around all the time. They were independent study courses. You take the objective, take the midterm final, they give you a grade. So that's 50% of their classes. So it was very easy for me to show my face and not show up. And I did that for a year. And I was just so disappointed. And I was just like you. I'd walk by in the mirror and I'm just like, dude, I'm huge. I'm huge and I'm letting little people bully me. You know,
well,
and,
what's
I'm like,
and
I'm pretending that it's on me, but I'm gonna get go ahead, you go, because I'm
and what's really fucked up about that too is like, especially when you're a bigger person, you develop this really fun body dysmorphia where even when you're like Skeletor and there's nothing on you, you're still like, I'm a fat bitch. And I look back at photos of me from when I first moved here, and like I was walking all over the place trying to find a job in the city and like doing the hustle at like 19, and you know, when you're that age your metabolism's through the roof, and I was also not eating because I didn't have any money because I didn't have a job, and like, you know, I see pictures of me from back then. I'm like, you look dead, you have no anything on you whatsoever, and I still thought that I was fat and disgusting.
Yeah, I know how you feel.
Yeah, there's one picture of me singing at Don't Tell Mamas, and I'm like adjusting my polo shirt and it's just like rib cage, and I remember standing there thinking like, I have to pull on the reason why the photo exists is because I was pulling on my shirt to get it away from my body because I thought that it was making me look too fat. But then, like,
and you didn't want people to see you
at it, right? And looking back in hindsight, it's like, those are my hip bones and those are my ribs and that's my sternum, and you can clearly see it through the shirt.
Well, we all like ribs. Like, who doesn't like ribs?
Stupid.
We all love ribs. But I know, I think you were thinking someone would see you and be like, so are you auditioning for Passion of the Christ? You know, and it's like, no. Yeah, because all you saw was ribs in that movie, man. But no, but I had the same problem because when I lost weight, this is 2001, I took on a trainer and I started eating 5 times a day, and I lost 65, well, net weight 65 pounds, but I lost as much as 85. Felt a little weaker and got back to a certain weight. So I got from 265 to 186 to like 205. And what happened was when I went back to Marymount, you know how like all the theater rooms have mirrors on them or whatever? So I would look at myself, I'd pull my shirt up, look at myself in the mirror, and the girls and even the professor are just like, dude, stop admiring yourself. You're so narcissistic. And I'm just like, there's a story behind this. This isn't like I love me. This is like, I look at a mirror and this is not me. I was like a year and a half removed from this. Yeah. 65 pounds, dude, that's a Backstreet Boy, you know? So I mean, right? That's a Michael Jackson. So,
no, I get it.
I mean, a lot of people really say they know how you feel, but I can't. And I'm not saying I know exactly how you feel, but I get it. I can't pretend to know exactly how you feel, but I understand.
No, totally. Well, and the other thing too, like, you know, I always thought of myself as being a big kid, and like as a little kid, I was. But then once I hit middle school, high school, I like shot up. Like I said, I'm 6'4", and like moving to the city and like running all over the place and like losing all this weight, like starving and running around trying to like be a human. What really fucked me up, I think, was like at that point I was like 185 pounds, and 185 pounds, I'm all rib cage, and again
at 6'4", yeah.
Right, like I like, so again, like 185 pounds. When I had cancer, I went from 250 of like pretty solid muscle at that point for the most part. I didn't even get to 185 when I was at my worst, like pumped full of chemo, half dead, and the lowest I got was 210. Yeah. And to think that I was 20 plus pounds less than that at one point in my life is like, ooh, girl.
Yeah. Dude, I got out of boot camp. I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky for basic training. 199. And they said I was 4 pounds overweight for my height, which was 6'1", which we both, you're shaking your head because we both know that's
bullshit.
Thank you. That's nonsense.
4 pounds, once you get past like, once you get past like 6 foot, 4 pounds is like, go take a and you're done.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, I did take one and lost like 2.
Right. Like, here's a douche, go shove it up your ass and irrigate, and like come back and reweigh yourself. Like, there's the 4 pounds, have a good day. I hate that shit. That makes me so mad. When I played football, there was a weight limit tier because of the ages of like the people on the team. They didn't want to like have anyone be killed.
Right.
And I was like 8 or 9 pounds over the limit.
Well, living's important, but go ahead.
Right. They still let me on the team, but they threw my ass in trash bags and a sweatshirt and had me run around the field.
Oh.
I really never did practice because I was running around the field in a trash bag.
Jesus. Yeah.
Like, and the first time they made me do it, I just like collapsed and cried. And like my poor dad, like he was the one that talked me into doing it, and he was there, and I just like ran over to him and cried. And I don't know this to be true, and it seems out of character for him, but I'm sure that there was like a moment of like, oh, my like gay kid is crying at me at football practice, but that's out of character for him, so I'm totally projecting that and making the
come
assumption.
on, even Tom Hanks was like, there's no crying in baseball, right? Remember when like Madonna was crying? He's like, are you crying? There's no crying in baseball.
I played baseball for 7 years. I got hit in the face with a baseball and ran off the field crying, didn't bleed, and then years later, like decades later, I was getting a scope done of like my sinuses in my throat, and the doctor, like, you go up your nose and it goes down the back of your thing and it looks around, and the doctor was like, oh, when did you break your nose? And I was like, I have never broken my nose. He's like, oh no, you did.
4 different places.
But it's like, it's on this side and it's up in the bridge, so it never shifted anything. But it's been like that since I was like 7.
Does it affect your breathing, or do you breathe okay?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was broken until like 6 years ago.
I still think I broke mine in 4 different places, and I still don't think I'm breathing well. I mean, I gotta figure that out without anybody altering what.
Now I'm conscious about it. Now I'm like trying to breathe through my nose to be like, is it up? Is it? Am I not? Damn it.
Question. See what I did? Hey, here's the ultimate distraction. Let's get back to musical theater. Was there? All right, I'll shape the question like this. Shakespeare did Titus Andronicus, right? His blockbuster that allowed him to do some of the work that he wanted to do, like Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet and all that stuff. Very much like George Clooney, right? Did ER and did like that Jennifer Lopez movie Out of Sight. So he could do Syriana, so he could do Good Night and Good Luck, and what Men That Stare at Goats, and oh Brother, Where Art Thou? This is a random question. It just came in my head, and I guess we get to do whatever the fuck we want. Was there a play that you made some money on that allowed you to do some of the work that you like to do, or is all of the work you like to do and it's just part of your journey?
What do you mean? Like, are you asking like how much I was paid?
I mean, you love musical theater and this and that, but at some point you have to make money doing it. So was there a particular play that was a money maker that gave you permission to do some of the work that you wanted to do, absence of like a fat check?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, in theater, there's really no such thing as a fat check, right? Like, you know, if you look at some of these contracts across the country, whether they're equity or otherwise, union or not union, they're all paying garbage for the most part. You know, like I think the most I ever made a week was maybe 700 a week on a contract. And, you know, at the time, like my rent was cheap, my life was cheap. So that was like, oh, great. Oh my God, I'm making so much money. Because that's in a top percentile of the amount of money that you can make as an actor across the country. And there are theaters that are exceptions, like the bigger ones. I know like Sacramento Music Circus pays more. I know the Muni pays more.
Ambassador, yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, but like, and Broadway obviously pays more than that too. That's a different contract here, but like the majority of people work regionally. So like a fat check in theater, like relative to what, you know, like relative to TV, what a joke. Like absolutely not. But I think because my life was so inexpensive during the period of time where I was really, really working, like there were years where I was just like out of town, like on the road, like I just am not here. I really like 2015 was a really rewarding year. I was making good money at that point. I had really leveled up to the amount of money that I was making, and I was doing shows that I really loved. Like I got to do Bonnie and Clyde, I got to do Into the Woods, I got to do 42nd Street. There were two other shows that year that I did
Dude,
that I'm not remembering.
I'm going through the whole list right now.
Yeah,
This
but
is
like
awesome.
they were really rewarding shows, and my casts were wonderful, and I'm still friends with some of those people. And like the money was needed and necessary and good, but that year really like fueled me for a really long time. I was out in Kentucky. I got to do the Kentucky Derby. I went there and just like on a day off and did that for a weekend. It was so fun. And yeah, I mean it was about the money, but it wasn't,
Yeah,
like
no, I think you you hit it on the basic theater performer head. Like when I was at Marymount, I lived in Harlem. I got my cheap on before it became fully gentrified, right? Cheap apartment, and I did a lot of free work. So same thing. But
yeah, I
thank
don't
you
think I ever
for
did.
making that question seem incredibly stupid, but at the same time still interesting. It was
No,
still,
it wasn't a stupid question at
yeah,
all. I mean, it's true.
it
Like,
was interesting. It's sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, like if you're on Broadway and you're I think the minimum for Broadway right now is like 2,400 a week or 2,500 a week, which is like, for the average person, a really, really big check. But when you take into consideration that, like, how long is that show open? How long is that contract? If your
Yeah.
contract's 6 months, like, okay, that's a good amount of money, but then you might not work for a year,
Yeah, there's
and so
100 shows a year anymore. That doesn't exist.
no, I mean, like, it
Yeah.
just kind of it depends on. I mean, there are, but it's vary, and it varies, and there are few and far between. So, I mean, doing theater for money, I always say to people, um, when these kind of conversations come up, and because of an experience that I recently had, which we can get into, um, do not make it your whole life. I know that there is a narrative out there that like you have to drink it, breathe it, sleep it, eat it, do it all day, every day, or you don't want it enough and you don't deserve it. And like that's just not true,
How
for
long does
one.
someone last doing that?
Well, I mean, the
You know?
burnout conversation is a separate conversation, but yes, I mean that's valid. But it's also just like, you don't have to stay waiting tables or bartending to survive. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. I did that for years. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm not trying to shade that industry. It's a hard one, and you can make a lot of money doing it. But you also don't have to do that in order to also be an actor. I mean, like, there are people, you hear stories all the time of people like Rebel Wilson. I mean, she was a lawyer and was like, nah, I'm going to be an actor. And
Yeah.
just like could afford to do it because she was making enough money as a lawyer to support
Yeah.
herself.
I worked in a cardiology practice.
Right. I mean, like you have to
Yeah.
have something, you have to have something else that actually pays the bills. Now, whether that's a company that you've started yourself or a tech career or something that you can work remotely that's flexible, like whatever it is, you have to have something else that is not theater, because theater will go away. It will stop. You will have droughts.
Right.
No one is working 100% of the time. And so, like, jumping from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant to restaurant, like, cool. If you're built for that, congratulations. That
Yes,
is
because
not
some
me.
people are, and I'm not either. Go ahead.
And props to them. I do not have that brain cell anymore.
Right.
But, being able to start your own business or being able to work within a space that, like, is totally cool if you deuce out for a couple months and work remotely while you go do a show. Like, and I'm saying this because last year I was hired for the national tour of Chicago. I was Billy Flynn. We were going out on the road. It was the 25th anniversary tour. They're out now. I'm still friends with those people. I have absolutely no shade to them whatsoever. This was nothing anyone really did. But at the last minute, I was replaced, and I wasn't given any reason why. I still haven't, and I don't care. But if I didn't have something else in my life that was like supporting me and giving me a job to do, I could have spiraled and fallen apart.
Right. You stumbled onto something very, very important that in your wheelhouse is significant, but at the same time for other people, this, I won't call it an escapism, but something that you need to do outside of this.
Yeah, it's not escapism. It's
No.
survival.
Well,
It's
they're
for your
not,
mental health. It's like,
but those
you
things
know,
are not always separate. your survival could be your escapism. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Yeah.
absolutely.
So
But I mean,
mhm.
living in a capitalist society where we have to pay for everything, which there's nothing wrong with, like,
No.
great. But, you have to make money. Money has to be there. And so
Mhm.
whether it's escapism or survival, like, you still have to do it.
I
And
I think I
so,
was making more reference to something that allows you something you need to escape to that allows you to come back and do your job that makes money. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? For example,
sure.
when volleyball, right? When this was my escapism, but when it became my career, my full-time career,
Yeah.
I needed something else that I could do that allows me to come back and function like a mammal. Walk on two legs and drink water. Uh, um, so yeah. So for me, it was karaoke. That's just an example. All right. My wife, she likes to go to the Caymans and swim with sharks and pet sharks. Come on, swim along with me. And I'm like, have a good time. Which is also a living proof that to have a good relationship, you don't have to do everything together. Because I ain't
Yeah,
doing
for real.
that. Come on, let's swim with sharks, man. What do you say, bro? Yeah, good luck with that. So I,
Yeah.
I, I didn't mean to steer us a different direction, but
No,
I
but I
thought we
mean,
could
I
cover
know.
that subject matter twofold.
Right. I know
Hmm.
what you're saying. And I think that the difference is, like, I'm talking about having two different careers, one that fuels you and one that pays you.
Got you.
And I think what you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, is having a career and a hobby, like something that you can walk away from the career from and go do that, like,
Well,
is
got
this
it.
is an escape, like going swimming with sharks or whatever,
Right.
and both of them are valid, and you should absolutely do both of those things.
Hmm.
But the reference that I was making in terms of having something else was more so like, theater is not going to pay the bills in the way that you want it to. Like, unless something big changes within the industry soon, it never will. And
But you
it
had
is what
some
it is.
ideas, man, in the beginning. Didn't mean to,
I have so many of
didn't mean to
them,
break
but
your
I
flow, but god damn it, that was so.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. No,
Mm.
well, and listen, I mean, I have so many of them, but I'm not going to give them away for free. People can pay me for those.
Thank you.
But, like, it's just the idea of, like, if you want to do theater and that's really the path you want to go down, good, do
Mhm.
it. But also have something that, like, pays you enough money that you can afford to do it, because it is an expensive industry to be in, and it is not one that pays enough to negate those costs a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that and volleyball has in common, it's everyone refers it to as a rich person sport. You got to have money to like right now because beach volleyball is an NCAA sport.
Mhm.
All of the club sizes for juniors have tripled because now it's a
Oh,
business
wow.
because now you can get a scholarship and a full scholarship and play. So now like all of these juniors clubs, it's a business because people are trying to get their daughter, so they're spending extra time for private lessons. They go with these elite clubs. Some of them have good coaches, some of them have glorified babysitters, whatever. And yeah, once it became a business, like you said, the rich man, where the richer people are the ones. There's a reason why USC is like the two-time defending beach champions. It's not. It's University of Spoiled Children. Okay, it's not
Oh my God,
Southern
that's funny.
California. Yeah.
Yeah.
NYU is very much like that too. They have a good Division III men's volleyball team that that can beat up on a D1 team. Yeah, very, very good point. And I steered us a little bit away, but
That's okay.
the broader point you were trying to make certainly prevails because the message for the people, whether you're in theater or not, that is something that brings new meaning to the term, bears repeating, if you get what I'm saying. So,
Yeah, no, totally.
so you're having a good time, right? You're chilling, you're doing theater, and all of a sudden you got this lump.
Yeah.
Um, what was it? Lymphoma? I have it written down, and I'm such a
No, it's
moron.
okay.
I'm such a
It
moron
was
from Brooklyn, but you're in the middle of doing Hairspray, right?
Yeah.
Or working the musical Hairspray.
Yep,
And then
out in
you
Reno,
noticed
Nevada.
God damn it, am I putting a Debbie Downer on this shit? We're having such a good time.
No, I mean, listen, I can absolutely make a joke out of cancer. I've been doing it for years, so let's go.
Let's so I have it written here. It's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a form of
Yeah.
cancer. And you're doing Hairspray. You're having a good time, you're doing your thing, and then there's a lump on your body. The floor is yours.
There was actually a lump before I got there. It was really small, and I was misdiagnosed, and I just was kind of given antibiotics and told to go along my merry way. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, great. And by the time we got out there and we started performances and the show was running and whatever, it was a very long contract. It had grown. It was like the size of a grapefruit by the time I left there. And it just became more and more evident the longer I was there that like something needed to be done. And so the timeline of that was like the contract was over like right before Thanksgiving. I came home, had Thanksgiving with my parents, and like went back to the city, got a biopsy done, and by the first week of December I was checked into a hospital for like 2 weeks for chemo. Merry Christmas.
Jesus, yeah. Yeah, you're like, Santa, you suck.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, and thankfully I was out before Christmas, barely, but I was, and so I was able to like go home and spend Christmas with family, and at that point I still like looked and felt pretty normal and okay. But yeah, I mean, it was just 5 months of that, and then radiation and all kinds of complications and a stem cell transplant, and then it was gone and I was okay. But I mean, along the way, I lost friends who stopped talking to me. I was broken up with in the middle of it, and there was some really weird happening, but at the same time, like, I had great friends around me, and it made it bearable. It made it fun in some instances. Like, one of my favorite stories that I kind of forgot about, but I'm recording the audiobook for this now, and I remembered it because I read the chapter, is about a night that we were at Sloan Kettering right before my stem cell transplant, and my two best friends came over, and we had a pizza party in the room. I mean, they were the ones that were at the pizza party situation with me. Like, again, like when I was starting to tell people that I was diagnosed with cancer, I had friends not stick around. And so
and a significant other, right?
Yeah. And so the ones that were in my hospital room with me all the time, like, that was kind of like, they had already been around for a couple of years at that point, but you know how, like, people can be wishy-washy and disappear after something like that. I mean, like, California, I have no questions about who my friends are and who will be there for me, and who will bring a shovel if we need to hide a body. Like, it's just, I know who those people are in my life, and that's such a relief. And it was only brought to my attention during shutdown that not everyone has that, and that made me so sad, because it never occurred to me that people don't have that. It's like, you got to have at least like one, right? And like, a good friend of mine, I was talking to him, and I was like, oh yeah, like, he was like, how's your shutdown? And I was like, well, this friend lives 2 blocks away, and this friend's 3 blocks away, and this friend's across the park, and like, I'm friends with my neighbor, and I know this girl down the street. And they were like, you're so lucky. I was like, why? Like, where do your friends live? And he's like, I don't have friends like that. Oh, man. And I was like,
I'm so sorry.
Oh God. Like,
it's like, you need a quarantine, bruh. Right? You need a quarantine.
I mean, I had a whole damn squad. Like, it was a good time. And the majority of those friends were the ones that were there. Like, I've gotten to the point now where I've lived in New York long enough, almost 18 years, that like, I can say I've known people for 10, 15 plus years.
I think it's safe to say at this point you're a New Yorker. I mean, right? 18 years,
I sure
you're just
fucking
a New
am.
Yorker. Yeah, no doubt. Dude, my girl's from West Virginia, but 15 years. When you put in 15 in New York, you're a New Yorker. So,
yeah. I remember when I first moved there, it was 10, and I was like, okay, well, I got to make it to at least 10, so I can at least just say it.
You did it. And you're going on 2 decades right now. So.
I did it. Oh, I know, Jesus. I'm at the point now where I've lived in New York almost as long as I've lived in Pennsylvania, which is like just so jarring. I'm closer to the age my parents were when I moved to New York than I am to the age that I was when I moved to New York.
Let me ask you something about the cancer thing. You did stem cell replacement. Was it replacement? Is that what it's the nomenclature?
It was a transplant.
Yeah, and transplant. Can you educate our audience, because right now you're an aficionado on it, right? Because you were neck deep in it. Can you educate my audience on some of the dangers versus benefits of stem cell replacement? Yeah,
I mean, at this point I'm like a doctor. I mean, not really, but
no, you are. Nobody should ever, dude. No one should ever say, "Are you a doctor?" At this point, what you went through, the first person to ask for a doctor, I'm gonna reach through the screen and I'm gonna pull out that.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's two different types of stem cell transplant. One where you are your own donor, and one where someone else is.
Right.
And the one where someone else is your donor is super dangerous because you have to take basically antiretrovirals for the rest of your life to make sure that you're, maybe that's not the right word. Is it antiretroviral? I don't remember what
It is.
It's something to make your new stem cell immune system not reject your body, or your body reject the stem cells. And it can really f you up. It can cause a lot of different problems. And that's originally what they wanted me to do. And I said no. You know, and I had to really stand up for myself and put my foot down and be like, I'm 25. I was in the best shape of my life when I got here. I will be my own donor. Thank you. And we barely got there, but it happened.
Good.
And I ended up being my own donor.
Are you a doctor? Not kidding.
Not yet. But I ended up being my own donor, and that made it so much easier. It made the survival rate much higher. The rejection rate is basically 0 because it's your own fluids. Your body recognizes it not as foreign. And yeah, it was a wild ride. It was it was crazy.
Yeah, but you know what? Here you are.
Here
You
I am.
know? And again, I remember before the podcast, we were talking about ups and downs. Like, this isn't, it's not completely fun. It still sucks in some ways and this and that. But I got to tell you something, just being on the podcast and watching you light up when you talk about theater really, really makes me miss it. That's something I said before the podcast, because my memory's not that bad. I probably said it in the podcast, and now I'm repeating it. But I was like, dude, if this is you going through stuff, I can imagine when I'd like to be along for that ride when you think things are going well, because I really, really, I just enjoy listening to people talk about the love for their wheelhouse, and because theater was my wheelhouse a while back. Yeah.
Well,
I did.
Listen, as
my
long
best
as
play
I
was
keep...
my best play was Susan Laurie Parks. Susan Laurie Parks, who won a Pulitzer for best drama.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean,
yeah.
listen, as long as I keep going, then it's all good.
No doubt. No doubt. And yeah, and I have this saying about friends: one cannot be betrayed if one doesn't have a people.
Yeah.
I got that from the Usual Suspects, actually. Kevin.
That's the
Spacey.
trick to New York, right? Like, you got to find your people.
Yep. And California was hard. Look, I live in Hermosa Beach, but and you want to talk about phony people and knowing who your friends are. When you were talking about who you know and your friends are, I was like this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, and I think that's the difference between New York and the West Coast. Like,
100%.
New Yorkers won't be phony to you. They'll just not deal with you at all.
Right. And people got to know, it's not the illogical leap of being impolite. It's just not pretending to be over polite, like phony.
And just not being bothered.
Yeah, phoniness. So
yeah.
So yeah. So what did I write down? Holy, an episodic version of the book.
Yeah.
Is that what's coming next?
Works. That's what's coming next. It's in the works.
I'm going too fast. Stop. Tell everybody your book first. I'm sitting there talking about episodic version. We didn't even talk about the book. Tell everybody the name of the book, because I'm actually going to put it up on my edit on my podcast. What it looks like.
Yes, please
Great
do.
Picture of you. You look like a James Bond villain. the better looking ones, not the ugly ones.
Goals in life. Yeah, the book is called Cancer, Musical Theater, and Other Chronic Illnesses. It is a funny as cancer can be musical theater fever dream about being a patient and a survivor of a rare cancer. You don't have to like musical theater to appreciate the book. It does help. It just adds a different layer to it. But it really kind of deals with a lot of what you go through as a patient that wasn't really talked about or wasn't on my radar when I became one. And certainly touches upon a lot of the stuff that happens to you after the fact that you're not really prepared for or told about.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna read it tonight. Someone's gonna make sure I have a copy tonight, because I got back from Vegas.
Call Barnes and Noble and yell at them.
Yeah, dude, I'm like, shame on you. Yeah, I got back from Vegas Monday, and it was just really, really hard. I was I actually drove to, and the ride there was gnarly, and I was just trying to get back without get back and live. So now we can talk about the episodic thing. Is it something you consider making a musical? Or is that something that's like a straight play?
It's going to be a musical TV show. The script and music is in the works right now, and I'm hoping to be in pre-production by the end of the summer.
Okay. Wow. The end of this summer.
Yeah.
So, wow, the whole thing, man. You definitely, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how to do your film because no one's going to tell you that, but you got to get that, like the bullying thing and the things that shaped who you are and just, how you lit up and what you appreciate at the theater. I think it should be included, but not limited to that. So, just my suggestion as someone who, who's 52, who's done, directing. I've done everything, dude.
Yeah.
I went on a date a few years ago, and I've done so many things. The girl told me, like, even if all of this is a lie, it's an interesting story. That's what she told me. I was just like, it's not a lie. Did I mention I'm black? So
Right.
huh? Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, my mom's black, and my father isn't. So let's finish. I have something called the lightning rounds.
All right, let's do it.
And you're hungry, and I know we got a hard stop here. So let me see if I can find my clock. There it is. Let's go back to 60 seconds. And let's go, baby. You ready? Hold on. I got to get my horn honk sound when it goes to
let's
zeros.
do it.
All right. So, whoops. It started already? No. What are you doing? Stop that. All right, here we go. Favorite comedian?
Oh, Jim Jeffries.
Nice. Wow, cool. Last good book you read?
I'm reading one right now called The 5 a.m. Club. I love it.
Marvel or DC?
Oh, neither and both.
Pool or the beach?
Oh, beach for the sand, pool for the water.
Nice. Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Lord of the Rings.
Bourbon, vodka, or tequila?
Well, when I was drinking, I was a professional bourbon drinker, so we'll go with that.
I added that in because I read that about you. I threw that in there. A favorite sport as a spectator?
Oh, as a spectator, tennis.
Nice. Favorite action film star growing up?
James Bond.
Anything, but all things Bond. Favorite non-musical that popped into your head right now? Not necessarily your favorite one, the one that just popped in your head now.
Wait, actually, I want to rephrase the last one. I want to say Brendan Fraser in the Mummy series.
Excellent. There it is.
So much better. Okay,
yeah.
Non-musical.
The first one that popped in your head without thinking. Boom. What is it?
Do you mean like a play or a movie or a TV show? Like what? Non-musical anything?
Non-musical straight play. You're thinking.
Oh, Ain't No Mo.
There it is. My man.
Good.
And last but not least, any fun conspiracy rabbit holes? Like, for example, me, I don't think Oswald acted alone.
Okay. That's I'm
ex-military, and I don't think you can make that shot. But go ahead.
Got it. Okay. Oh God, there's so many, right?
You do. Yes. 2000.
I love the idea. I love the idea that giants existed.
Yes. Oh my goodness. How
don't know if it's true. I don't want to fall too far down that rabbit hole and get indoctrinated to it. But like, there's a very, very promising argument to it. Like, I've been to those places that have the really big doors, and it's like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I really want to believe that there were giants. And of course, like, then my first thought is like, if there were giants, like, show me your
right.
I just want to see it. It's like Shaquille O'Neal. Like, just let me see it. I cannot believe that this is real.
Shaquille O'Neal would be like,
yeah. Well, the joke is that Shaquille O'Neal is actually just Kevin Hart.
Yeah. It kind of is. I wonder if it screams out loud like him.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, but that's my conspiracy theory.
Cool. Maybe plug in an AGO website. A lot of people, some people want to know more about you. How can I be down? I want to know what he's up to. Want to know where he's been. Want to know what he's been through. Want to know where he's going. Talk to me.
You can find me on any social media platform at Edward Miskie, and there's always going to be a link that's going to lead you to all the other fun stuff that I do.
Nice. I like that. All right, people. Edward might love you, but I don't love any of you guys. In fact, I can't stand you, all right? So this man's hungry, and I'm out of here. My wife's bringing me dinner. So for all of you at home, for all of you on your iPads, for all of you on your iPhones, for all of you on your desktop who runs the world, baby, old school, old school. From my man Edward Miskie, I'm Jason DeBeers. This is episode 170 of the Option Podcast. Stay with me. I'm going to hit my music, and we are out of here. Come check out the Option Podcast on optionvb.com. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and on YouTube under the NY Varsity Sports handle. You're going to love what you hear.